Like the whole of the UK prison system, every prison is controlled by Islam. Everyone. There's no defense against it. And why is there no defense? Because the prison authorities know it's happening, the government knows it's happening, but everyone's hands are tied behind their back through political correctness. You have to understand the power of that political correctness. It was that powerful that every police force, every politician, they all just went into silence. They know children are being raped across the country, but none of them would speak about it. And anyone who did speak about it lost their jobs, went to prison, got silenced, got attacked. So the first few cases, people started hearing what was going on. Then now, any of these scandals, they have a reporting restriction. So when they put a reporting restriction, for example, there was a case in Leeds, 30 of them. It was Huddersfield, one of the biggest rape gang scandals in our country's history. 30 Pakistani Muslim men. They've been raping 100 girls, torturing them, raping them for years. And now the authorities are having to deal with them. So they take them to court. So I go outside the court and I'm reporting. And they put reporting restrictions. So this is what they do now. And those reporting restrictions prevent anyone reporting on anything that's happening. And then what happens is you have a 6-week trial. And rather than hearing the news for 6 weeks about the trial, at the end of the 6 weeks, you get 1 day reporting. Because then they lift the reporting restriction, you get 30 men convicted, but you don't hear all the details. You'd have 1 day's news rather than 6 days' news. So I stood outside the court and I said, these cases are going on up and down the country. Across our country, you don't know about it, but they're happening across the country. They're being arrested, they're being tried. And under reporting restriction legislation, the judge has no power to put restrictions on information that's already in the public domain. So I made sure not to breach the reporting restriction. I said, I named the men, I named how many victims, because this was information I knew a hell of a lot more. These men have been on bail for 2 years, running the same shops, still in contact with kids. I knew so much about them, but I didn't say it. I'm outside court. The men are coming in. As they're walking in, I said, how are you feeling about your verdict? They're all making threats to me. I was very calm. The judge is at the top window. His name was Judge Marston. 2 minutes later, this is on a live stream. I'm reporting. 2 minutes later, I'm arrested. You're under arrest for a breach of the peace. I said, what do you mean breach of the peace? What have I done? They arrest me. They handcuff me. They take me to the police station. They don't even put me in the police station. They say, right, take him to court. I'm taken to court before a judge, Judge Marston. I'm not asked to plead guilty or not guilty. I get to court. I say, I want to speak to my solicitor. I have to speak to my solicitor. They don't allow me to speak to my solicitor. They put me before the judge. Within 2 hours, I got sentenced to 13 months in prison. And what the judge then did is put a reporting restriction on anyone being told I got sentenced to 30 months in prison. So I then land 2 hours later. I'm in HMP Hull. I ring my mother and my kids. I say, I'm in jail. I've just got 30 months in jail. And she's like, what? I said, I'm in prison. I've just been sentenced to 30 months in prison. I haven't done anything wrong. But they put a reporting restriction, thanks to America, Australia, Canada, because you're not governed by their restrictions. So no one in the UK was allowed to talk about it. But then over that weekend, it started blowing up everywhere, which started a Free Tommy movement. I'm then transferred and taken. This is all to do with them still hiding this same problem. So I'm then taken and I'm put on solitary confinement in a Muslim majority prison. And it took 2.5 months before we got to a court of appeal. We get to a court of appeal and they find that everything they've done was unlawful. I'm then released from prison. During this period, and as you'll see in the back of that, I was happy, not happy. As I'm getting put in the back of that van, I say, Germany, millions are now going to watch this film. And I give an education. That video there, the entirety of that video was me talking to parents to say, this is how they do it. If this is what's happening to your daughters, this is the telltale signs. What I make a point of is that I've grown up with some Muslim lads in Luton who would be appalled by what these men are doing, but understand that these men are operating in every town and city. It's still being hidden. I then got sent to jail for that. I got 13 months. 2.5 months later, I went to an appeal. I was released. I come out of that. I went into prison one person and come out another just from 2.5 months on solitary confinement. It damaged me. But this is all to do with the rape gang scandal. And the biggest problem, say in Rotherham, I then said the purpose of them sending me to jail was to prevent the public being aware of this. So when I come out of prison, I said, I'm now going to work tirelessly to make the world know what's going on. And I then started working on a 5-part series called The Rape of Britain. And I spent 12 to 18 months in a small town called Telford. Telford in the UK has I picked Telford because Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. And trust me, if you've got Muslim communities in America, this is already happening. It's already happening. This is happening everywhere where there's an Islamic community. So in Holland, for example, it's Moroccans. In France, it's happening. It's Lebanon. It's happening across. In the UK, it's majority Pakistani. But when you look at the demographics of all of the men. They're Afghani, they're Iraqi, all of them are from different Islamic countries. The majority are Pakistani because the majority of the UK Muslims are Pakistani. So I go into Telford, 1.7% Muslim population, spend 12 to 18 months, and I meet so many girls. I had a focus of 12 women, and I'd sit them down for 3 hours, 4 hours, and I'd interview them. And then I built a database. We've done a full-scale police-style investigation in this town. And the reason I picked this town is because I thought there's not that many Muslims there. I'll be able to find out everything about every one of them. And I can work out who's who the families are, how they operate. So we end up building a wall of men. Now, from that investigation, I got 264 names from these women. Then the police do an investigation in Telford. The police investigation identified 200 men. Out of those 200 men, the police prosecuted 11. Right? They let the rest off. When you see rape gang scandal and you read the headlines, it's just a token gesture. They can't afford to put them all in jail. They wouldn't have the prison spaces to put them all in jail. So in Telford, 5 are dead. 5, a whole family were burned alive. Yeah, 5 of these victims just in Telford. Now, the police investigation identifies 200 men and 1,000 children that have been raped. So in Telford, with a
1,000 children have been raped
by 1.7% Muslim population. When you look at the 1.7% Muslim population, roughly 3,500, 4,000 Muslims, you take away the women, you then take away the under-16s, you're looking at the police figures of 200 is 20%. Our figures, 264 we had named. Then there was an independent inquiry, which got 350. So you're looking at 20 to 30% of the Muslim men in that town are raping young girls. Now, this is where you get into understanding why the Labour Party have not dealt with this. This sounds, and you can watch my 5-part series. Now, we find police officers involved, Crown Prosecution Service, politicians, the whole community are involved. And in that town, so if you've got 20 or 30% of the men that are raping these girls, some of them are being tortured, some of them are being murdered, just in this small town of Telford. What do you think is happening in my town where there's 50% Muslim population? What does anyone think? But we'll never get the figures for these towns. And this is where, and I'll get onto, this is why it's all blown up so big in January, which when Elon Musk jumped on board in highlighting this, because in Telford, there was an inquiry, not an inquiry with statutory power. So an inquiry with statutory power would allow people to be summoned to court on oath, police, council, and they'd have to tell the truth. But the inquiry that was given didn't have that power. So it wasn't a government inquiry. They gave a solicitor-led inquiry. So the solicitor-led inquiry, without any power, identified 1,000 victims, 200 men, and told an incredible story. Now, what's happened now recently is in the city of Oldham, which is a 35% Muslim population, which has some of the most horrific rapes and torture of children, they've been crying out for an inquiry to what's happening to the children. As they're crying out, 6 times the Labour Council, because when the Muslim community get that big in the town, you ain't getting an inquiry, because Labour just shut it down every time. So when they're going to try and get a vote within the council to have an inquiry into these rape gangs, it's voted down every time. So then last year, independents stood in council to say, we'll call for an inquiry. So then the independents get voted in because the non-Muslim community in the town want to tell the story of what's happened to their daughters. So you can see some of the videos. My next documentary is looking at this. I'm going to show the whole world what's gone on, yeah, with the Labour Party, because there's been a massive cover-up. So then they vote in. They then appeal to the government for a statutory power inquiry. It goes to the Labour government. Jess Phillips shuts it down. So they've voted people in to try and get the inquiry. Then they go to the government, Labour. Labour then shut it down. There's no inquiry. And then Labour are saying we'll do these little 5 inquiries without statutory power. So that it's just a complete shut.
Who's above Labour? Who tell Labour, hey, go investigate this? Who holds them accountable?
Well, you need to look, which my next documentary is looking at. And this is, so say in the town of Rochdale. Rochdale is a massive rape gang scandal. They're in every town. The local Labour councillor, Hussein was his name. Now, 10 years ago, this is all now topic of conversation. 10 years ago, when a young girl was raped, 100 girls were raped, yeah, over 100. So this young girl in this community, her local Labour representative, which is your Democrats, her local Democrat politician, her local representative, didn't go court to support her. He went to court and gave a character reference for the Muslim rapist, as did the mayor of Bolton. They went to court and testified in court, on oath, and testified that this Muslim man who's raped 100 kids is a wonderful man. He's a great man. Yeah. So they went to court and gave a character reference. What happened to him? He didn't lose his job. He didn't lose his job. I went up to question him as a journalist. I knocked at the door and said, I'm here to ask Councillor Hussain some questions. They said, come back in 2 hours. So I drive back in 2 hours. Gangs come from everywhere, smash my car up, blitz me. Because what's unthinkable is that the political power is working with the violent gangs. They're together.
What's the benefit, though? What are they getting?
What are they getting?
But because back in the days, if you look at the Italian mob, right, what they did, they had them bought. So they paid them off, and it was a model. Hey, we have this many cops, this many judges, this many this many that. This doesn't seem like that's that because they're not making that kind of money.
Oh no, this is a mafia as well. The Islamic community is a mafia, total mafia.
So do they have the judges and the cops and all those guys bought?
Well,
because they're paying them off.
Episode 1 of the Rape of Britain that we produced, we track down, we get witnesses and testimonies. So this girl's been raped, and this girl's Nicole, very brave young girl. She's been raped at the age of 13. She gets pregnant. They get DNA from the fetus of the baby. Yeah, they get the DNA. So we have all the paperwork. 100% DNA match on the Pakistani rapist who drives a Lamborghini, who's age 23 or 24. Yeah, so they get the DNA match. No further action. There was the police, no further action. Okay. Now this girl's dad at the time worked in the restaurant of one of the gangs because they're all coordinated. Yeah, he used to work there. Now we had 2 different witnesses who witnessed the chief inspector, police officer, in the restaurant with the gangs. It's the head police officer because it works as a mafia. They're making so much money. You know, they control the drugs, the violence in every town and city is controlled by the Muslim community in the UK now. They are the mafia. They control everything. And whoever controls the drugs controls the towns, controls the streets. Whoever controls the streets controls the towns.
Elon Musk said something about Starmer, right? He tweeted something about him. I pulled up right now, prime ministers in UK from 2005 to 2025. Tony Blair, you got Gordon Brown, Labour Party, Labour, Cameron, Conservative, Theresa May, Conservative, Boris Johnson, Conservative, Liz Truss, Conservative, Rishi Sunak, Conservative, and Keir Starmer, Conservative, Labour. You mean David, Theresa, Boris, Liz, and Rishi? While this is going on, they knew about it and they didn't do anything about it?
All of them knew about it. Well, remember, they were responsible for open border mass immigration. The reason being, open border mass immigration, the problems I'm talking about are the problems that come from that. Now, if you were allowed to really look at it, then whose failure is it? Why are these girls getting raped? It comes down to their political failure, their decisions to allow mass immigration into our towns and cities. So that's why they must cover it up. Because if it's not covered up, all these problems that I talk about, all the problems I've seen, all these rapes, all the gangs, all the terrorism, all the jihad, all of that, they've imported. And that is their failure. So if you're allowed to look at it and investigate it and question it, then you're going to start looking at them. And then the public are going to look at them and say, you did this. You did this. And every one of them have risen to the top with dirty hands.
Okay, fair. So royal family, who has more power, prime minister or the royal family? You think the royal family is going to allow, we're Americans, right? So we're on a completely different place here. But when we think about your politics, can't the royal family sit there and say, what are we doing? The rich history that we have, are we going to sit here and be okay with this happening to us?
Okay, so look at a case in Manchester. Young girl, what's her name, Victoria? Young girl, 15, drugged with heroin by a 55-year-old Muslim man, raped. When she was killed, that launched a police investigation. They made, I think, 100 arrests. When they made these arrests, there was the police officer in charge. I'm speaking from memory here, but I've done this before. So there's a police officer in charge. They make 100 arrests. They arrest them. They give them their court date, their pending court cases, and then the Crown Prosecution Service collapse. Gone. Everything's gone. Remember, this is when they're still covering up, yeah? So the police were forced into doing an investigation because a young girl had died. Then they uncover all of these rape gangs and they start looking at them. Victoria, so it was Victoria. Rape arrest as part of new grooming. Oh, so now they're making arrests in 2020, yeah? But she wasn't killed in 2020. Get out when she was killed. Now, when she was killed, 2003. So remember, this is when we're still in big cover-up mode, yeah? So they make loads of arrests in this case. They find the gang. They find that all the ones, hundreds of them are operating, just raping young kids, torturing them. They make arrests. They get them all ready for court. They collapse the entire trial. The lead police officer who collapsed that trial won the highest recommendation 6 months later from our royal family. The level of cover-up.
6 months later from royal family?
From the royal family, he won the biggest award you can get for his work. He won the reward for covering this up. Because what you have to understand is They were so fearful of this coming out, and they always say they were fearful of race riots, fearful of race tensions, because you can't allow the public to realize that literally members of the Islamic community are raping their way through our nation. And that is all to do with open border mass immigration. Say like the Democrats now, they're opening up. Many problems in American cities are going to come from the problems that have come from the men who they've imported and allowed in. So what do they want to do? They just hide it. And this was a mass cover-up for up until the formation of the English Defence League. They had successfully hid this for 30 to 40 years. So you can imagine the level of animosity and frustration they have with me. So that's why, and every arrest in the first 6 months was done to intimidate, scare, and silence. It didn't work. We're now fast forward. I'm arrested again on rape gangs. I've just been put in prison again. I've just come out. We're 10 days in. I was released from prison 10 days ago. I spent the last 7 months on solitary confinement for showing the public the truth. And what was that truth about? That truth, I have to be careful what I say here because I'll go straight back to jail. I'm currently under another gagging order where I was only released. I would have spent the rest of my life in prison for this film. I made a film. I'm a journalist. I made a film and they sentenced me to 18 months in prison for that film. Now, what did that film expose? That film exposed the problems from a refugee that was imported in. If people were allowed to understand the truth of what had happened in that area, they'd be looking at the government, because the public didn't want Syrian refugees brought into Great Britain, but the government, during the height of the ISIS chaos that was going on in Syria, brought in 20,000, the conservative government brought in 20,000. The problems I spoke about in this film were to do with one refugee. What about the rest? And they'd hid it. They hid this entire story. I would go into detail on this. I'm simply not allowed to. I will go straight back to jail and face 2 years if I sit and give you any details about what went on. I made a film that became the most watched film in British history, 167 million views.
Silenced?
Silence. I made that film.
This was the Syria case where the kid watched the video, had a broken hand, the other guy comes and hits him, and you claim...
I have to be careful. Even me having that discussion where you make the claim now, they'll probably bang me straight up in jail.
Why though?
I'm under an order. For me, so I made a film. They take me to court. I make a film. The court lawfare. Lawfare is used, and it's been used against me for 15 years. It's not just used against me. It's used against anyone who whistleblows or speaks out. We live in a totalitarian state in Great Britain. I don't think any Americans really understand, well, I hope you do understand, that you are the only place left in the world that has free speech. You are the only place. But the American establishment now, under Donald Trump, they know lawfare because they saw it with Russiagate. They know how coordinated the FBI worked with the media. They all combined together in order to attack. That's happened to me. Now, Donald Trump is a billionaire and he had a massive platform to highlight this. I've been fighting this as a working class kid from Luton Town. And I've managed to build my own platform, even through the censorship. Remember, they censored me to a level where if you mention my name on Facebook, they delete your account. I was up there with mass terrorists and killers, my name. I've never been convicted or tried for anything to do with hate crime. I've never even had an arrest for anything to do with it. Nothing I say is hateful, it's facts. Unfortunately for them, the facts spell out the problems that they've imported into our country.
Let me ask you, in regards to that case with Silence, the article says that you ended up having to pay $100,000 and $500,000 of legal fees.
More than that, they bankrupted me for £1.5 million. So what they did is, a story blows up in the national news, a manufactured story. I prove it's manufactured, right? They twisted the whole story. Now, the problem is, how many stories like this are they feeding us? This story was on CNN. This story was on ABC. This story was on China News. This story was worldwide. And the story the public was fed was just lies. It was just manufactured lies. And the media blew it up. Why did they blow it up? Because it suited the open border globalist narrative of mass immigration, that the Syrian was that the refugee is the victim and the English are racist bullies. So they blow this story up. I make a video countering it, saying this isn't true. They then attack me using lawfare. They put me through the courts. They tell me to apologise. I say I'm not apologising because I'm truthful. Because this is what I'm saying. What I'm saying and giving witness testimonies of. I'm not going to apologise. They then bankrupt me. But when they bankrupt me, I then went and wore a hidden camera. And I got the school teachers. This was about an incident at school. I got so many people on camera, they were paid not to tell the truth. So I produced...
Saw that.
Yeah, you saw it.
Yeah.
Do you know everything you saw in that film? Not one single British journalist has reported. Most watched British documentary in history. Not one single journalist has made any report of it. Now, for the establishment, so people understand when you Google my name, If you Google my name and you look at my criminal record history, if you hadn't seen that film, Patrick, you would just read that I lied. You'd read that I lied. Because all the mainstream narrative just says that I lied and made things up. But unfortunately for them, when I made that film, I knew what that film showed. That film was a far bigger story than Tommy Robinson. It's much bigger than me. Lawfare has been used against Donald Trump, against Steve Bannon, against Alex Jones, £1 billion, against Marie Le Pen now, can't stand an election, what happened in Romania, what's happened to Geert Wilders, what's happened to Morten Messerschmidt. Any political leaders, any populist people have stood up and made any challenges or highlighted any of the globalist narrative have come under attack with lawfare. So my film showed that, and I knew when I released it, I knew it would be prison, and prison for me could be death because our entire prison system is controlled by Islamic jihadist gangs. I mean, public, if they...
Yours.
Now, yours will be soon as well. America needs to wake the hell up. They will be converting right now in every American prison. The people in control of the conversions, they will infiltrate every institution in your state, and they will turn the people against you. The first they went for in the British prison system is the black community, and they are converting blacks like that. And the same in your American system. In your prison system, they are recruiting, and they guarantee you, if you don't get a grip of it now, you'll be sitting in 10 years' time, scratching your heads as you think you've got problems with different gangs in jail. Every one of your prisons will be controlled by Islamic gangs. Like the whole of the UK prison system, every prison is controlled by Islam. Every one. There's no defense against it. And why is there no defense? Because the prison authorities know it's happening, the government knows it's happening, but everyone's hands are tied behind their back through political correctness. You have to understand the power of that political correctness. It was that powerful that every police force, every politician, they all just went into silence. They know children are being raped across the country, but none of them would speak about it. And anyone who did speak about it lost their jobs, went to prison, got silenced, got attacked. When you're in prison, they're not allowed to hold you in solitary confinement. I believe they've tried to destroy me each time I've gone to jail. So this most recent time, I went in as a civil offender because I made, as a journalist, I made a film, and they give me an injunction. Remember, these non-disclosure agreements you saw in the film, injunctions, things like this, they're being used across the board in the West to shut everyone up, whether it be in hospitals, whether just they pay people to be silent. So you're not really getting the truth. And the mainstream media are never giving us the truth. And I can give you more examples of stories like that. But they're silencing everyone. So when I had that film, I thought, right, I didn't want to release it because I didn't want to go to jail, but I did want to release it. So I made the decision, I sat my family down and said, I have to do this. Like, I have to let the public know. And I thought, if they come for me, when that film leaked, it had 200,000 views. When they come for me first, it had 200,000 views. So I knew, I sort of made a video saying, God, send me to jail. Because I need the world to see. The world needs to see lawfare. They need to understand how it's operated. You can't just keep reading headlines on people. You can't read a headline on this person being a sexual offender or this person being that without knowing what's going on behind the scenes of that. How come every single person who speaks up all of a sudden, even you look at Russell Brand, for example, Russell Brand was the darling of the left. He spoke out against Big Pharma and he's facing loads of prosecutions for sexual crimes. It's like across the board, anyone who tries to bring any of these conversations to the forefront is attacked.